Imagine a film that didn't just redefine a genre, but really carved out this permanent, like, unshakable place in cinema history.
Mhm.
We're talking about a masterpiece, characters you just never forget, visuals that honestly take your breath away,
Right.
and a soundtrack that even now, decades later, still sends shivers down your spine. It's a true legend,
Mhm.
a benchmark.
It really is a complete cinematic experience, isn't it? From those opening frames, it just grabs you. And
Yeah.
honestly, it never fully lets go.
Yeah.
It's a film that really demands your attention and it rewards it hugely.
Today, we are embarking on, well, an immersive deep dive into the 1966 spaghetti Western masterpiece, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Hmm.
And to get ready for this, we've looked at a whole stack of sources, really detailed stuff on its intricate plot, the, complex motivations of those iconic characters.
Why the trio?
It's truly groundbreaking cinematic techniques, and of course, its massive, enduring legacy.
So our mission today is to really unpack the genius of Sergio Leone's vision. We want to dissect the fascinating moral complexities of those titular anti-heroes.
Yeah, anti-heroes is definitely the word.
Absolutely. And explore how its raw, visceral portrayal of the American Civil War acts as much more than just a backdrop.
Right.
And try to understand why this film keeps resonating so powerfully, across cultures, across generations.
That's exactly what we're aiming for. Get ready for some maybe surprising facts, a few aha moments as we go,
Definitely.
and hopefully a fresh perspective on what truly makes this film a masterpiece. So let's jump right in and sort of set the stage for this epic journey.
Okay. So, released in 1966, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was directed by the visionary Sergio Leone.
Hmm.
And this film, it's widely considered the iconic conclusion to what people call the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
Full of fistful of dollars and for a few dollars more.
Right, the Eastwood connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But while it definitely expands on the style and themes from those earlier films, it also stands perfectly well on its own. It's a self-contained, sprawling epic, really.
And when you think about this film, the first thing that pops into your head is often that legendary trio of actors, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You've got Clint Eastwood as Blondie, who by this point had pretty much solidified that enigmatic man with no name persona from the other Leone films.
He owned that role by then.
Totally. Then there's Lee Van Cleef as Angel Eyes.
Mm.
His piercing gaze and just that chilling presence are completely unforgettable.
Satisfyingly effective.
And the incredible Eli Wallach as Tuco. He brings such a chaotic, dynamic energy.
Yeah.
It feels like he anchors the film's emotional core in a weird way.
That's a great way to put it. The synergy between those three actors is just palpable.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of why the film still works so well.
Mm-hmm.
Their chemistry, even when they're antagonists, it's electric.
Yeah.
And the core premise itself, it sounds simple on the surface, set against the brutal, devastating backdrop of the American Civil War.
Right. And the main plot revolves around these three, let's say, morally ambiguous men, each competing, often viciously, to find this hidden fortune, $200,000 in Confederate gold.
Simple premise, yeah.
But it's really in the execution, how Leone handles that simple premise, that the film becomes this profound statement.
And this is where those titles, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, become so fascinating because they immediately mess with what you'd expect from a traditional Western.
Right, they're labels, but not straightforward ones.
Exactly. We have Blondie, Clint Eastwood labeled The Good. But as you watch him, you realize pretty quickly that good here is, well, miles away from conventional heroism.
Mm-hmm. Not your typical white hat.
Not at all. He's calm, incredibly skilled as a bounty hunter, stoic, efficient, yes, but often quite ruthless in his own quiet way. Driven by self-interest and this peculiar kind of unstated code, his moral compass is definitely skewed. And Leone's genius here, I think, isn't just about showing shades of gray. It's about forcing us to grapple with this radical question. In a brutal, lawless world, is good simply, the ability to survive? Or maybe it's the pragmatic wisdom to minimize unnecessary suffering, but only when it serves your own ends.
That's interesting.
Blondie's seemingly cold calculation reveals this new kind of heroism, one born from pure self-preservation. Yet, paradoxically, it often ends up being the most effective way to navigate that world. He's the ultimate survivor, really, and his actions are like a masterclass in controlled chaos.
Then you shift to Angel Eyes, Lee Van Cleef, who is the bad. And honestly, that label fits him perfectly. There's almost no irony there.
No ambiguity at all with him.
None. He's a cold-blooded mercenary, utterly ruthless, terrifyingly efficient. He takes a contract, he completes it, but often with fatal results for basically everyone involved.
Including the person who hired him.
Exactly, if it benefits him. There's no gray area with Angel Eyes. He just embodies pure, unadulterated, self-serving evil, like predatory capitalism in a lawless land, almost.
He really is the antithesis of a hero, a force of pure, destructive self-interest, completely untempered by any code or empathy you can see. He functions as this clear, dark, moral anchor in the film almost. Against him, the other two, despite their own major flaws, somehow seem more sympathetic at times.
Yeah, relatively speaking.
Right. He represents the absolute worst of human nature, just driven by greed and this chilling desire for control. He's like the storm that's constantly following them, this relentless pursuit of pure profit.
And finally, my personal favorite, Tuco Benedicto Pacifico Juan Maria Ramirez.
You got to say the whole name.
You have to. Played by the inimitable Eli Wallach, who is the Ugly. Now, Ugly here seems less about his intrinsic morality and more about, his unkempt look, his loud, crude manner, his general wildness as a Mexican bandit.
Right, the outward appearance.
But underneath that loud-mouthed, cunning exterior, his morality is surprisingly complex. He's a survivor, definitely driven by greed, yes. But he's also capable of explosive loyalty, profound vulnerability, even this bizarre, twisted sentimentality. He is, in so many ways, the most human of the three.
I completely agree. Tuco is arguably the most relatable of the trio, precisely because he's full of these complexities and contradictions. He's explosive, violent, prone to theatrics, but also vulnerable. He can be funny, surprisingly, and he's fiercely determined. The Ugly isn't really a judgment on his soul. It's more a descriptor of his rough-around-the-edges existence, forged in a world that offers very little comfort or refinement. He's like the raw, unfiltered id of the group, just reacting purely and viscerally to everything.
So what this all means is that Leone, right from the start, completely subverts those traditional Western archetypes.
Totally throws him out the window.
These aren't your typical white hat heroes or black hat villains. Their actions are driven purely by self-interest, by survival in this brutal world, and by this peculiar shifting code that makes them utterly unpredictable. You're never quite sure who to root for, or even if you should be rooting for anyone. It's such a stark portrayal of a world where conventional morality just doesn't seem to apply.
It's a brilliant artistic choice, really. It forces the audience to engage with the characters on a completely different level. You're not getting clear-cut morality, you're getting this whole spectrum of gray shades,
right,
which mirrors the chaotic and morally ambiguous setting of the Civil War itself. It's a world where survival is the ultimate virtue, and traditional ethics often just take a backseat to expediency and personal gain. It's cynical, yeah, but strangely compelling.
And from the very first frame, Leone just plunges us into this brutal world. He introduces Angel Eyes in a scene that leaves zero doubt about his chilling nature. It's not just an opening, it's like a stark declaration of the film's moral landscape.
Yeah, that opening is incredible. Angel Eyes is hired to kill a man named Stevens, who supposedly have crucial info about the hidden gold.
The Bill Carson gold.
Exactly, the gold stashed by this soldier, Bill Carson.
Right.
And this sequence immediately establishes the bad, as completely devoid of conventional morality, just ruthlessly driven by greed. Leone wastes absolutely no time showing Angel Eyes' true colors. He doesn't just kill Stevens to complete the contract.
No.
He immediately turns on his employer, the guy who hired him, and executes him in cold blood. Just like that.
So cold.
This ensures that nobody else knows he's after the gold. He secures all the information for himself. And the way it's shot, the chilling silence, just punctuated by the creak of floorboards, Angel Eyes' slow, deliberate movements. It speaks volumes.
That's such a powerful opening statement about his character, isn't it? It just unequivocally establishes his self-serving nature, his lethal efficiency. He's determined to find that gold for himself alone, and he's willing to eliminate anyone who stands in his way, or even just knows too much, without a moment's hesitation. Zero remorse. It tells you immediately that trust is worth less than nothing in this world. It's a landscape where the fastest draw isn't necessarily the deadliest, it's the one with absolutely no conscience.
It tells you trust is a luxury nobody can afford. It's a weakness, something to be exploited.
Yeah.
From that very first scene, Leone sets the tone. This is a world where alliances are temporary, betrayal is just a tool to get ahead, and human life holds very little value compared to the pursuit of wealth.
Yeah.
You're immediately immersed in this morally bankrupt landscape, reflected in the harsh, dusty visuals and the complete lack of traditional justice. It's a stark, brutal introduction to those core themes, greed and survival.
And no sooner do we meet Angel Eyes than the film introduces this other cunning duo, Tuco and Blondie, and their own surprisingly intricate scheme for survival.
Right, their little scam.
Tuco is, as we mentioned, wanted for all sorts of crimes across the territory. Big price on his head. Blondie, the expert marksman, captures him and turns him in for the bounty reward. Pretty standard so far.
But here's the brilliant, cynical twist that really defines their relationship early on. Just as Tuco is about to be hanged, like literally the last possible second.
You see the rope straining?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Blondie dramatically rescues him with a perfectly aimed rifle shot that just severs the rope. Tuco falls, gets whisked away, and they escape together, splitting the bounty.
It's this elaborate, profitable, and incredibly dangerous scam they've worked out. Like a bizarre form of performance art mixed with illicit finance.
And it's not just a one-time thing. They repeat this ridiculously risky scam in different towns, each time pushing their luck, pushing the local authorities. It consistently showcases Blondie's incredible precision with that rifle shooting the rope, shooting hats off heads, distant targets, just uncanny accuracy.
And Tuco's sheer resilience, too. His ability to endure a hanging, even a brief one, and his, theatrical performance of fear and desperation.
It's a partnership built purely on mutual financial gain and this strange, almost symbiotic understanding they have.
But that kind of arrangement, well, it's inherently unstable, isn't it? Especially when you're dealing with characters driven by such profound self-interest.
Absolutely. It's bound to break down.
And the inevitable fracture happens. Blondie eventually just tires of Tuco, finds him too much of a liability, maybe too loud, too attention-grabbing, or maybe just no longer useful for the scam.
Serves his purpose.
And he coldly abandons Tuco in the middle of this unforgiving desert, just leaves him to die of thirst and exposure. It's a stark demonstration of Blondie's capacity for calculated cruelty.
Yeah.
And his willingness to just shed partners when they stop being advantageous. This is definitely not the act of a good man, not by any conventional measure.
No, it completely undercuts any traditional heroic expectations you might have had for Eastwood's character. Blondie's actions here are purely self-serving and ruthless. Maybe not as overtly malicious as Angel Eyes, but still cold. It shows that even the character label good operates on this complex spectrum of self-interest. It makes you question those hero narratives right from the start.
Yeah.
You realize good is just a relative term in this universe.
And this moment, this betrayal, is absolutely crucial because Tuca's furious survival against all odds, crawling through the desert, finding a horse, getting armed.
He's like a force of nature.
He is. And his immediate visceral vow of revenge, that's what sets the entire subsequent plot in motion. It's the main catalyst for so much of the film's drama. It drives Tuco on this relentless hunt for Blondie. And it also just unequivocally highlights how the good is anything but. It reveals Blondie's morally ambiguous core right from the outset. There's no noble purpose. It's pure pragmatism, even if it borders on just plain callousness.
Exactly. It sets up the next phase perfectly.
And this brutal betrayal by Blondie leads us straight into the double crosses and the birth of what becomes this incredibly unlikely, completely forced alliance.
Right. The tables turn.
Tuco, fueled by pure vengeance and this almost animalistic determination, he successfully tracks down and captures Blondie.
Payback time.
And then he marches Blondie through that scorching, desolate desert, bringing him to the very brink of death. It's this brutal form of torture designed to mirror Blondie's earlier abandonment. It's Tuco's moment of triumphant, vengeful vindication.
But this is where the narrative takes that massive pivot and gets really interesting. Just as Blondie is about to succumb, crawling, barely conscious.
Yeah, he looks done for.
This runaway carriage appears seemingly out of nowhere. And inside, they find dying Confederate soldiers, victims of the relentless Civil War.
And among them,
In a stroke of pure narrative brilliance is Bill Carson.
the key to everything, the soldier who hid the gold. And his dying breaths hold the fragmented secret they desperately need. He tells Tuco the gold is buried in a specific cemetery, Sad Hill Cemetery.
Got the location.
But, and this is the crucial, agonizingly suspenseful part, he only reveals the name on the grave, Arch Stanton, to Blondie, just before he dies.
It's almost cruel, isn't it? Giving half the answer to each of them.
It's the ultimate narrative driver, binding them together whether they like it or not.
Exactly. The immediate consequence is this forced, incredibly uneasy partnership. Tuco and Blondie, now absolutely must work together
No choice.
because each holds exactly half of the vital information needed to find that gold. Neither can succeed without the other. This binds them in this desperate, high-stakes quest, transforming their bitter rivalry into a reluctant, tenuous collaboration. It's a classic MacGuffin, but handled with such brilliant character dynamic.
It's such a clever storytelling device. It
Yeah.
forces these two guys who genuinely despise and distrust each
But
other
yeah, the hatred is real.
into an alliance purely out of necessity. It's not about friendship or loyalty. It's just about their shared singular goal. Find that gold. And it keeps the tension incredibly high through the whole rest of the film because you know that alliance is so fragile. It's constantly on the verge of collapsing into another betrayal. Their conversations are always just laced with threats, insults, and this simmering animosity.
That dynamic tension just permeates the rest of the film. Their interactions are this constant dance between cooperation and animosity,
Yeah.
fueled by the knowledge that the second they have what they need from the other, that partnership could dissolve or become fatal. It's a masterclass in building character relationships through mutual necessity, where every shared glance, every muttered word hints at that deeper unspoken history of betrayal and maybe grudging respect.
So as they continue their perilous journey, still trying to navigate this harsh, war-torn landscape, Tuco and Blondie suddenly get intercepted by Union soldiers.
Right, caught up in the bigger conflict again.
They're just swept up in the larger chaos of the Civil War and sent to this brutal prison camp, a place of, starvation, torture, utter depravity.
And this is where Angel Eyes chillingly reappears, adding yet another layer of deception and threat to their desperate quest.
He's always lurking.
He is. He's in the camp, disguised as a Union sergeant, methodically working his way through, accumulating wealth and power. His presence is calculated. He's looking for information about Bill Carson's gold, and he knows Tuco is a likely source.
So Angel Eyes immediately goes to work trying to extract that information. He tortures Tuco ruthlessly.
Yeah, that's a hard scene to watch.
It is a combination of physical abuse, psychological torment, trying to get the location of the cemetery, and Tuco, under immense duress, finally gives up Sad Hill.
Crucially.
Crucially, Angel Eyes does not learn the name on the grave. Because Tuco never knew it in the first place. That vital piece of information remains Blondie's alone. It's his ultimate leverage.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, that omnipresent Civil War setting, it really isn't just a backdrop or a convenient location for the story.
Yeah, it feels active.
It's an active, chaotic, destructive force that constantly interferes with the trio's pursuit of gold. It acts as this brutal, visceral mirror, reflecting the larger senselessness and brutality of war itself. It disrupts their personal, greed-driven quests with its own vast, impersonal violence. The war is like another antagonist, this swirling maelstrom of death and destruction that constantly threatens to just swallow their individual ambitions.
You really see how the war isn't just window dressing. It's another larger antagonist in itself, continually throwing obstacles, new dangers, moral dilemmas in their path. It elevates the film beyond just a simple treasure hunt into this profound commentary on humanity caught amidst grand-scale conflict.
And in that chaotic environment, alliances are incredibly fluid. They're forged and broken in an instant. Angel Eyes, realizing he can't get everything from Tuco, forms this uneasy alliance with Blondie,
Always shifting.
still hoping to somehow coerce the full information, that elusive name on the grave, out of him. It just highlights how desperately each character needs the others, and how easily loyalties shift when survival and immense wealth are on the line. Trust is non-existent. It's only temporary convenience.
But Tuco, true to his tenacious, volatile nature, he isn't staying put in that camp.
No way.
He orchestrates this violent, almost animalistic escape, brutally killing his captors, making his way back out into that desolate landscape.
So the visceral scene shows his sheer will to survive and his capacity for extreme violence when he's cornered.
And then, with that signature vengeful determination, he relentlessly tracks Blondie and Angel Eyes again. He's like a force of nature driven by vengeance and avarice.
Which raises that important question again.
Right.
In a world where trust is fleeting, survival is paramount, and everyone's driven by self-interest, can any alliance truly hold? Or is everyone ultimately just out for themselves, just waiting for the right moment to betray or abandon the others? The film constantly pushes this idea that personal gain trumps everything else, making every interaction feel like a potential landmine.
And this brings us to the next stage of their journey. The race to the gold. through a landscape absolutely ravaged by war.
Hmm.
The trio, in their various shifting configurations, has to navigate this incredibly grim picture of destruction. Death and desolation are just everywhere.
The film paints such a stark visual of the Civil War's impact. You see these desolate battlefields strewn with corpses, ruined towns, the pervasive suffering of soldiers, civilians.
Bleak.
It's a constant, harrowing reminder of the human cost of conflict, even as our protagonists stay fixated on their personal fortune. Leone doesn't shy away from the brutal realities of war. He makes the audience confront them head-on.
One of the most iconic and I think emotionally resonant sequences in the whole film happens here. That bloody, utterly senseless battle over the river bridge.
Oh, at the bridge scene. Powerful.
It's not just a set piece. It serves as this powerful visual metaphor for the futility of war itself. You see thousands of men, Union and Confederate, just dying over this strategic point that seems to have no real meaning in the grand scheme. Just endless, brutal attrition, a colossal waste of life. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking and visually stunning. And in the middle of all this profound senselessness, Blondie and Tuco, still locked in their uneasy alliance,
Right.
they conspire to blow up the bridge. And they don't just do it for their own passage, they do it specifically to stop the pointless fighting on both sides. Remember the Union captain lamenting the endless casualties?
Yeah, the dying captain.
And our anti-heroes, for maybe the only time, seem to agree that enough is enough, albeit for their own pragmatic reasons the battle is in their way.
But that scene, it isn't just about blowing up a bridge. It's such a profound statement on the moral costs of war.
Even these deeply self-interested characters, driven by the basest human desire, greed for gold, they acknowledge the absolute waste of lives happening around them. It's this brief moment where their personal quest intersects with a larger, almost humanitarian impulse, shows a glimmer of something beyond pure self-preservation.
Or perhaps just shared exasperation at the sheer absurdity of it all.
Maybe. It asks us, the listener, to consider, at what point does even the most hardened individual recognize the futility of conflict?
It definitely adds this nuanced layer to the film's big themes of war and greed. That relentless pursuit of wealth happens inside this theater of immense, senseless destruction. It highlights the stark contrast between the petty, individualistic greed and the grand, devastating scale of the war.
Right.
They want the war to stop, not out of pure altruism, probably, but because it's hindering their progress, creating unnecessary obstacles. It's like a pragmatic compassion, maybe, a moment of shared humanity born from just sheer exhaustion with the surrounding chaos.
So finally, after navigating all this chaos, dodging bullets, surviving brutal encounters, they arrive. Sad Hill Cemetery.
And what a place it is.
It's massive, sprawling, incredibly atmospheric, visually just striking. The sheer scale of it, thousands upon thousands of graves stretching to the horizon under that vast open sky. It immediately builds this profound sense of overwhelming anticipation, almost biblical grandeur.
It's a landscape that feels almost mythical. A silent testament to the countless lives lost in the war, known and unknown. The sheer number of graves just heightens the suspense, emphasizing the monumental task ahead.
Yeah.
And Tuco, armed with just half the puzzle, the name of the cemetery, begins his frantic search. He's running through this immense graveyard, desperately, exhaustively searching for that one specific grave, Arch Stanton, the name Blondie gave him.
And the camera follows him, creating this dizzying, almost manic energy.
You can feel his desperation radiating off the screen. He's digging, clawing through the dirt, reading name after name. The gold is within reach, but still agonizingly hidden by that single crucial detail only Blondie has. The sheer scale of the graveyard, combined with Tuco's increasingly frantic, almost comical search, it perfectly encapsulates that feeling, the maddening hunt for a needle in a haystack, made even more agonizing by the immense treasure at stake. His breathless panting, the sweat, it all adds to the palpable tension.
It's designed to push Tuco to his absolute limits, physically and mentally, while at the same time setting the stage for the film's ultimate confrontation.
Right. The frantic search underscores his volatile nature, his intense, all-consuming desire for the gold, while Blondie just watches, knowing the truth, always maintaining that crucial one step ahead. It sets the stage perfectly for the ultimate confrontation, that three-way dance with death.
And this brings us to it. The ultimate showdown, the iconic standoff. This is the moment everyone remembers, the climax the entire film has been building towards.
The trio.
At the grave, believed to be Arch Stanton's, Blondie delivers his final masterstroke of deception. He reveals the critical truth. There's no gold in that grave.
Pulls the rug out from under them.
Completely. The real location remains a secret, totally unknown to Angel Eyes and Tuco, even as they stand mere feet from where they thought the treasure was.
And this is the setup for that legendary three-way standoff, often just called the trio scene. The visual itself is just seared into cinematic history.
Oh, yeah.
Blondie, Angel Eyes, Tuco forming that tense equilateral triangle in the dusty cemetery center. Hands hovering near their guns, faces taut with sweat, anticipation.
And Leone uses those extreme close-ups again, focusing on their eyes, their hands, even the slight tremor of a lip, magnifying every twitch, every flicker of their eyes. It creates this almost unbearable psychological tension.
And what truly elevates this moment to legendary status is the crucial, almost character-like role of Ennio Morricone's masterpiece score.
Absolutely essential.
We're talking the ecstasy of gold leading into the trio. The music isn't just background, it builds this almost unbearable suspense. It defines the scene, pushing the tension to unimaginable heights. It's not just accompaniment, it is the emotion, the tension, the very heart of that scene.
Morricone's genius in this sequence, you just can't overstate it. The ecstasy of gold with that driving rhythm, the operatic vocals, the wailing electric guitar, it perfectly captures the frantic, desperate anticipation of finding the treasure, mirrors Tuco's manic search. Then, as the standoff begins, it shifts into the trio. That slow, deliberate buildup featuring the iconic ocarina, the whip cracks, that distinctive wah-wah-wah motif. It perfectly amplifies the internal conflict and the external threat in that final face-off.
It's like an operatic crescendo that transforms a simple gunfight into this monumental event. It proves how music can be as vital to storytelling as dialogue or visuals. It's pure cinematic alchemy.
So the tension is at its breaking point. Palpable in every lingering shot, every note of music. Angel Eyes, always the aggressor, makes the first move, draws his pistol.
But he's met instantly.
Swiftly, ruthlessly shot and killed by Blondie. It's a testament to Blondie's blinding speed, his pinpoint precision, his unwavering focus, even under that extreme pressure.
And then there's Tuco. He finds himself completely unable to shoot. Why?
The reveal.
His gun is unloaded. A clever callback to Blondie having sabotaged it earlier. A cunning act of foresight, emptying the chambers when Tuco wasn't looking.
It's another layer of Blondie's meticulous planning, his absolute control over the situation, always one step ahead, always anticipating the double cross. Tuco's moment of potential triumph is just snatched away, leaving him totally helpless.
With Angel Eyes eliminated and Tuco disarmed, at his mercy, Blondie then delivers the final piece of the puzzle. He points to the grave next to Arch Stanton's. A nameless, unremarkable grave labeled simply unknown.
That's the actual location of the gold.
The vast fortune, the object of so much greed and violence, hidden under the grave of an unknown soldier, buried anonymously.
What's truly fascinating here is how this moment cements Blondie as the ultimate master of manipulation and foresight, always playing the long game, always one step ahead of even the most cunning and ruthless opponents. It also adds this profound layer of pathos and irony. The immense fortune, the cause of so much bloodshed hidden under the grave of an unknown soldier. It further links the base nature of wealth to the anonymous casualties of a senseless war. Gives the gold itself this somber, almost tragic significance. Makes you question the value of such a treasure, really.
Absolutely. It's a powerful image. And this incredible resolution leads us into the film's peculiar, iconic ending, which brings the entire narrative full circle in a truly unforgettable way.
Right. Blondie, now firmly in control, forces Tuco to dig up the gold from that unknown grave, the sheer weight of the treasure contrasting sharply with the anonymity of the grave itself.
And then once the treasure's unearthed comes that shocking twist that mirrors their very first encounter. Blondie ties Tuco's hands and places him precariously under a noose, just like he did in their initial bounty scam. The tension is absolutely palpable. You're left wondering if the good has finally succumbed to villainy. Is he really going to hang Tuco this time, after everything they've been through? It's designed to make your heart pound.
Blondie then rides away with his half of the gold, leaving Tuco suspended there on a cross, cursing, panicking in apparent despair, seemingly left to die. It's a moment that definitely makes your heart race. Is this the bitter end for the boisterous bandit? A final, ruthless betrayal?
But then, just as Tuco's curses reach this fever pitch, this primal scream of rage and despair, Blondie turns back.
Shot.
With that characteristic precision we've seen countless times, he fires a single perfect shot. Severs the rope, setting Tuco free. allows him to fall to the ground with his half the gold. It's a precise, calculated act, not really mercy, but upholding his unique unwritten code.
Listen, what does it all mean? This act brings the narrative full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Echoing their very first scam at the start of the film, but the stakes were infinitely higher, and the bond between them, it's solidified in this strange, twisted way. It reiterates Blondie's unique and incredibly consistent moral code. He is capable of extreme cruelty, deception, yes. But he isn't entirely evil. There's this peculiar sense of honor, a bizarre loyalty, maybe even a twisted, grudging friendship that defines his relationship with Tuco.
He's always going to leave him alive, even if he makes him suffer first.
Yeah. It's Blondie's signature move. The cold, calculating betrayal followed by a surprising, almost merciful reprieve.
Well, it's not out of altruism, right? It's this complex, unstated code of conduct he seems to operate by, his own personal brand of justice, maybe? And Tuco, still cursing vigorously, but very much alive and now with his share of the gold, is left behind, while Blondie rides off into the horizon, the ultimate enigmatic figure, leaving us to ponder the nature of his goodness.
This film isn't just a great Western. It's had this enduring impact that goes way beyond its genre. It's cemented its place in cinematic history. Let's unpack some of its key themes, maybe starting with war and greed.
Okay, well, the pervasive American Civil War setting, as we've touched on, it isn't merely decorative backdrop. It fundamentally underscores the senselessness of conflict, the immense tragic waste of human lives.
Right. While the war is raging, tearing a nation apart with these devastating battles, countless casualties, the main characters are singularly obsessed with base material wealth. Gold.
It starkly contrasts the grandiosity and tragic scale of war with the fundamental, often petty nature of human desires. It highlights that brutal irony. So much suffering happening for abstract ideals, while individuals like our trio are motivated by pure, tangible greed. The film almost implies that war, at its core, is often just a reflection of magnified personal greed and self-interest.
And then there's that masterful theme of morality or ambiguity.
Yeah.
The very labels good, bad, ugly, they're not absolute moral categories. They are constantly challenged, subverted throughout the film. Blondie's actions, while often serving a sort of greater purpose in the narrative, leading to the right outcome in the end, they frequently involve deception, manipulation, cold calculation. It challenges any simple notion of goodness. He exists in this moral gray area where his actions feel pragmatic rather than ethical.
Exactly. And Tuco's incredible resourcefulness, his moments of surprising vulnerability, like his lament at the monastery with his brother,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
his sheer tenacity, they defy his ugly exterior. They show a depth that goes beyond just a superficial judgment. He's impulsive, violent, sure, but also capable of simple human emotions. Angel Eyes, on the other hand, remains consistently bad. He's pure, unadulterated, ruthless self-interest and calculated cruelty. The film ultimately suggests a world where survival, not ethics or traditional morality, is the primary driver of action. It's a profound commentary on a kind of post-heroic world where those old archetypes are just dismantled.
And Sergio Leone's iconic cinematic techniques, they were truly revolutionary, and you still see their influence today. His signature use of extreme close-ups, for example.
Those intense close-ups.
They let us see every bead of sweat, every flicker of an eye, conveying raw intensity, the internal emotional landscape of the characters. These weren't just standard close-ups. They were often so tight they became almost abstract, just focusing on eyes or hands, forcing you, the audience, into this heightened state of psychological tension.
And then there are those famously long, drawn-out pauses that build incredible suspense, allowing moments to just breathe, allowing tension to simmer to an almost unbearable degree before it erupts into violence.
Yeah.
This, combined with those sweeping landscape shots that emphasize the epic scale of the journey, the sheer vastness and desolation of the Western frontier, it created a visual language unlike anything really seen before in the genre. These techniques shifted the focus from just overt action to the silent internal drama of intent, forcing the audience to read faces, body language.
What's truly fascinating here is how these visual choices weren't just stylistic flourishes. They fundamentally shaped how stories are told visually.
Oh, huge influence.
They impacted everyone from, say, Quentin Tarantino, who openly cites Leone as a major influence, to countless modern action cinema directors, completely redefining the grammar of filmmaking, influencing how we understand cinematic tension and character expression even now.
And you simply cannot talk about this film without discussing Ennio Morricone's legendary score.
Impossible.
It is, without a doubt, one of cinema's most recognizable and impactful soundtracks.
Yeah.
A masterpiece in its own right. It really transcends mere background music. It becomes this inseparable driving force in the narrative.
It's like a central character in itself, isn't it?
It really is.
It builds suspense, it defines the characters, you instantly know who's coming just by their musical motif, and it evokes such powerful emotions.
Mhm.
Think of the rising tension of the ecstasy of gold during that treasure hunt, that building, almost unbearable anticipation driven by those powerful vocals and that driving rhythm mirroring Tuco's frantic search.
Yeah, unforgettable.
Or the operatic drama of the trio during the final standoff, where the music itself becomes the heartbeat of the scene, reflecting the character's psychological states through that unique instrumentation, the ocarina, the electric guitar.
It's simply perfect.
Hmm.
Morricone's compositions for this film are just integral to its narrative power, giving voice to the character's internal states, ratcheting up the drama in ways dialogue alone just couldn't achieve. His unique blend of classical, folk, avant-garde sound. It created a completely new sonic landscape for Westerns, defining the genre for generations to come. It truly is an inseparable part of the film's identity, an auditory masterpiece that has profoundly influenced how we experience cinema.
And all of this culminates in this lasting legacy. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is undeniably considered one of the greatest Westerns of all time. Certainly a cornerstone of global cinema. Its innovative narrative, the character complexity, that revolutionary style just set it apart.
Its enduring influence spans decades of filmmaking. From the way stories are structured, to the development of complex, morally ambiguous characters, to its visual style and musical composition across all sorts of genres. It has absolutely cemented its place as a true cultural icon, proving that even a film about greed and survival in a brutal world can achieve timeless artistic greatness.
So we've explored how The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly really transcends being just a simple Western. It becomes this profound meditation on morality, on greed, on survival amidst chaos, all wrapped in groundbreaking cinematic brilliance and that unforgettable score.
And this film masterfully blurs those lines between good and evil. It shows that even those seemingly on the good side are driven by self-interest, by calculation, and those labeled ugly possess surprising depth and resilience.
So, given the film's relentless portrayal of individuals navigating a world where honor is rare, survival is everything, what does The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly ultimately suggest about the true nature of heroism or villainy, especially when you're faced with extreme circumstances? Does it challenge your perceptions of morality when the stakes are literally life and death? Does it force you to question what you truly value?
It leaves us with a really compelling question, doesn't it? In a world stripped bare by war and greed, is pure survival its own form of triumph, regardless of the methods used to achieve it? It's a powerful thought as Blondie rides off into that sunset, leaving Tuco to count his gold and leaving us to confront all those gray areas.